Hey, what's up guys? It's Ariana back with a new DIY video. I'm going to be showing you how to make all of these cute, super trendy hair accessories, including scrunchies, hair bows, and hair clips. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm starting with the scrunchie. These are awesome to make with any scraps of fabric that you might have that you need to use up. Other than the fabric, you'll need, of course, some scissors and then some type of elastic. If you have an extra hair tie, you can use that. Or if you've got other kind of elastic, you can use that as well. You can just cut it to size and sew it in a circle. Or if you've got rubber bands, that's an option too. I've got this pack of rubber bands that I've collected from a bunch of produce that I didn't want to just throw away the rubber bands, so this comes in handy for this. Now, the fabric that I'm using is actually just some scraps from my last alterations that I did, so I kind of had to Frankenstein these all together, but basically you're just going to want a long rectangle. The width of the fabric will determine how big your scrunchies are, and the length of it will determine how scrunched up it looks. When it's folded in half, you really want it to be at least like 2/3 longer than your elastic is. I really only had enough to make it double the length, so it wasn't as scrunched up as I would like it to be. So I would say make it longer than I did. And the way that you're going to sew it is by getting the right sides together and sandwiching the rubber band or the elastic in between. As you sew, you'll have to scrunch up the fabric and make sure not to catch the rubber band in the stitches. And you'll end up with a donut-like shape with this opening here on the ends. And this is where you are going to turn it inside out. So that way all of the raw edges are hidden and you're left with a clean finish. And then the only thing left to do is to close up the gap. If your scrunchie is large enough, you might be able to do some of it in the machine like I did. I was able to close it up about halfway using the machine, but then I had to hand sew the rest of it closed. If yours is too small or if it's too fiddly for you, then you can always just hand sew the entire way closed, making sure that your raw edges are folded under. And once you close up that last little hole, you are done with your scrunchie. You can make these out of all kinds of different fabrics. This is one that I also did with a silky material. You can tell that this one is a lot more scrunched up because I made the length of it much longer than I did on that first one. But yeah, I love how these came out. They're super cute to throw into your bun or just a low ponytail. Now the other style I'm going to show you is actually a scrunchie with some ties attached to it that you could tie into a bow. To make that, I'm going to use this old scarf that I thrifted that I actually made that other scrunchie out of. And of course you'll need another elastic for this. The first step is to cut a long rectangle that is going to be the scrunchie. And then you're going to want to cut out some petal-shaped ties. I cut this out in paper just to kind of show you the shape that I'm talking about. You can make them straight or pointed or angled, however you want to do it. I kind of wanted my ties to have some volume, so that's why I made it wider in the middle. But you're going to need to cut out 4 of these in total. I just freehanded these and then flipped it to trace it to create a duplicate. So you should have a long rectangle and 2 pairs of these ties. Make sure they are right sides together, and then you're going to sew all around the edge of it, leaving that very top part open. I sewed it pretty close to the edge, probably about maybe 1/8 of an inch away, and then the gap that we left at the top is actually where you're going to flip it inside out. Then give it a good iron to flatten it out. So now that we've made the ties, it's time to do the scrunchie. So to make the scrunchie, you're going to do the exact same thing as the other scrunchies, sandwiching the elastic between the fabric right sides together. The only difference is we're going to want to include these ties into that stitch. This is about the time that I realized I probably should have made my rectangle a little bit wider because I made it so thin. It made it a little bit difficult to do this next part, but the best way that I found to do this though was to pin the ends of the ties to the edge of the rectangle and then roll up the tie itself and pin it to the middle of the rectangle. That way I wouldn't accidentally sew the ends of the ties as I'm closing up the scrunchie. When you do this, make sure that you pin it to the right side of the fabric because you want right sides facing when you sandwich it around the elastic. So once you sew it up, you'll need to flip it inside out like you did before and then hand sew the final opening closed. So you can tie it once for that cute scarf tied in your hair look, or you could even tie it into a bow. So now we're going to move on to a couple different hair clips. The first one is using this extra large bobby pin that I had laying around, and then I also had this package of pearls and crystals just in my craft stash, and to assemble it I'm just using a hot glue gun. So this one's really pretty straightforward. You can really do whatever design you'd like. I started by gluing down a row of the pearls and then attached crystals on the ends of them, so you could stop there and leave it pretty simple. but I had some seed beads lying around, so I decided to add those to the edges, but I definitely had to use super glue for those because they're so tiny. So yeah, super simple. And the next one is actually just as easy. I'm using a much larger clip for this one, as well as even larger pearls. The hair clip came in a pack of 3 from the dollar store, and these pearls actually got from the secondhand craft resale shop, along with this package of mini pearls as well. So again, I decided to keep a pretty simple and minimal approach and just hot glue them down in a row, which even that looks nice and simple and you could just leave it there, but I figured why not add just a little bit extra and use the little mini pearls in between. So I just glued those down at the base in between each of the bigger pearls, and I found that tweezers are a really good option for the smaller beads, so pro tip. Also, another tip, I found that the best way to glue these down was actually to put the glue onto the bead instead of putting the glue down where you were wanting to put the bead. I know it sounds like it wouldn't make much of a difference, but truly it does when it comes to the control and not getting the glue everywhere and not having it dry before you even get the bead onto the glue. Cool, so once I put down the mini pearls on both sides, I was done. I just love how simple but bold this one is. I honestly feel like it looks way more expensive than it actually is. So these next couple ones, I tried to make those pearl snap clips. Again, these hair clips were a pack that came from the dollar store. And honestly, these were kind of a fail, but kind of worked. Just because after it's done, when you try to snap the clip itself, you run the risk of losing a pearl. But if you're really careful with it, it seemed to work out and I was able to get it into my hair. So all I did was glue them down in a row at the top and then glue them down the sides as well. When you put them down the side, be sure to leave a small gap between each of the pearls, because especially if you're trying to snap the clip, if they're too close together, then they're going to run into each other and definitely pop off. So you can see where I've kind of left a little bit of a gap in between each of the beads. This was the first one I did as a trial run. I like that I was able to get 3 rows at the top of the clip, but you can see how close together each of the pearls are, and that definitely proved to be a problem. And then just as an extra precautionary measure, I took some liquid super glue and dropped it in between each of the beads just for some extra reinforcement. And that's it. I also really wanted to make one of those really large pearl snap clips, but I couldn't find any clips that were larger than these, so I ended up kind of making my own. I just recycled a little bit of somewhat sturdy plastic and traced around the hair clip to make the size that I wanted, but then you also have to cut away the middle portion. So I just used an X-Acto knife and kind of scored around where the cut needed to be, so I had some markings to follow. And then I was able to just cut that piece out and glue it onto the hair clip. So that extended my surface area to add all of the beads. And then I just followed the same exact steps and just glued the beads in a row. And here's how they turned out. Good news is they look better than they actually function. But I love that I can layer the 2 different sizes together and I can wear one on either side as well. Overall, super pleased with how all of these turned out. Definitely let me know what your favorite one was, or if you're going to try any of these at home. Hope you enjoyed watching this video. Be sure to subscribe for future DIYs and upcycles, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!